Hello friends, welcome to Universe of Naruto X. If you love Naruto What If stories and anime explanations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin today's story. It didn't help that they were whispering horrible things about him to one another. Without warning, Kusha flared her power and smiled sweetly at the citizens in the immediate area. I suggest you stop what you're doing right now. Naruto-kun's been through quite enough thanks to you people. So, if you know what's good for you, you'll shut the hell up and start treating him with some respect. Am I understood? She asked, her hair flailing in the shape of 9 tails. One of the civilians scoffed as he looked at her unafraid. The fool didn't realize the danger he was in. And what are you going to do about it? You're just one of the demons. Anyone willing to spend time with him is just another abomination in our eyes. He said, waving his hand dismissively at her. You all probably spread your legs for the demon and willingly accept his seed. It's such a shame, too. You're quite the looker. Without a word, Kusha stepped up to the man, a sweet smile on her face. Then, before he could react, she grabbed his head and proceeded to snap his neck. Watching his body collapse to the ground, she looked at the other civilians and asked, anyone else have something smart to say? Needless to say, everyone in the immediate vicinity ran away in a panic, screaming about homicidal abominations and the demons afterwards. Kusha walked back over to Nara. ND gently took his hand in hers. Come, Narkan, let's get you home. Na just nodded dumbly as he followed along. She's certainly interesting. When they reached the gate-barring entrance into the Uzumaki compound, they saw Akeno and Gasper waiting for them. Smiling kindly at Na, Akeno said, I figured I would wait here for you. Naruto-kun, I knew you'd eventually come here once Kosina-chan found you. Na frowned deeply as he looked at Akeno. Gasper he had no problem with, but Akeno was Ria's queen and probably knew quite a bit about Ria's dealings with the third Hokage. He wasn't sure if he could place any amount of trust in her if she played any part in what they had done. Still, he wondered if he could get some answers out of her. What do you want, Akeno? I assume you were searching for me for some reason. Na questioned grumpily. Akeno frowned sadly and said, we need to talk. It's about Roos. Na sighed and simply walked up to the gate. Kusha, is this a blood seal by any chance? The redhead nodded as she walked up next to Naruto and proceeded to prick her finger, drawing a bit of blood in the process. Smearing it across the seal on the gate, she pushed it open and walked inside with the others following her. Once the gate had closed and the seal activated once again, she led them into the house and proceeded to take a seat on the love seat. All right, Akeno, tell us what you need to say. Akeno sighed and found that she couldn't look Naruto or his mother in the eyes. You need to know the truth about the deal. Ria struck with Heroes and Serbi. Kusha scowled at this and asked, what else is there? They conspired together to ensure I couldn't be there to raise my son. They ruined any chance we had of being a real family. The sadomasochist looked sadly into Naruto's eyes and began to explain. When we first came to this village during the Fourth's reign, he agreed to give us shelter and made sure we were protected. We had finally found a place where Riza couldn't find us. Later on, we made contact with Sona Citri and invited her to come stay here as well. However, when the Fourth died and Herzen took over again, things changed. Naruto frowned and asked, in what way? Sounds to me like I won't like the answer. Akeno nodded and looked into her crush's eyes. Minato had left notes detailing what we had told him about what we are, the various factions, all of it. He left specific instructions on how to treat us and what he'd like his successor to do in the event of his passing. Unfortunately, Hazen decided to deviate from Manato's plans for us. He contacted Rias and she and I went to speak with him. Wanted to control us. The old bastard threatened to reveal our location to Riza and Ria's father. 1 Zodotacus Grimory. Apparently, Riza had come looking for Ria-sama and Hisan decided to blackmail Ria-sama in exchange for her continued loyalty. Sighing sadly, Akeno looked down at her lap and said, the bastard twisted Ria's arm, giving her no real choice if she wanted to remain safely in the village. He decided to use us and made us his elite enforcers. Then when he learned that Kusha-chan was alive and one of us, he enforced his will upon us once more and promised that he would reveal our location to Riza if we didn't keep Kusha-chan from you, Naruto-kun. By that point, Rias had already grown fond of you and wanted to help you in any way she could. But her hands were tied. It was either do as he said or we'd be given to Riza to do with as the bastard pleased. Kusha scowled and growled out, that rotten son of a how dare he do such a terrible thing. He deserves to die for his crimes. Na frowned and shook his head. If we kill him, there's no one to really take his place besides that Danzo creep. Kenio shook her head and said, Danzo's dead. The blonde blinked in shock before saying, then there really is nobody to take his place. Sadly, until a suitable replacement can be found, we're stuck with him as the Hokage. Kusha scowled at this, clenching her fists angrily. If Hirozen dies, chances are Jiraiya would take his place. That man cannot be trusted. He's fiercely loyal to the third Hokage. And he's obsessed with some prophecy he was told years ago. Chances are, he'll try to use you, Naruto. No. Our best bet would be to bring back to the village Sashi can take over as the fifth Hokage. But she could be anywhere at this point. That and she holds no love for the village after everything she's lost. Naruto frowned and said, then we'll just have to convince her to become Hokage. She needs to get over her losses, get over herself, and understand that plenty of people suffer just like she has. Let me guess, next thing you're going to tell me is she's he-phobic or something. Seeing the look his mother was giving him, the blonde deadpanned and said, you have got to be kidding me. The redhead sighed and nodded her head. Yeah, Sununid's got problems. Can't deny that, but I'm sure we can help her overcome her problems and take up the mantle of Hokage if need be. For now, we'll just have to deal with Serbi and try to counter him when we can. I refuse to let him manipulate you anymore. Thanks, Na said. If Hirozen passes away, what are the chances that Jiraiya will claim the seat for himself before we can recruits? Kushina smirked and shook her head. I wouldn't bet on it. Jiraiya would rather enjoy his vices and would sooner pass the position on to someone else. You see, Jiraiya is a massive pervert. He makes his living writing smut books. All his books are is no plot, terrible character design, cookletting the works, and the inspiration he gets comes from peeping on women in their most private of moments. They can be relaxing in the hot spring or they could be having with their loved one. He uses a jutsu that makes him pretty much invisible to the eye to do all his peeping. He's a rotten scumbag. Kenio scowled and said, enemy of women. Reina frowned deeply and said, if he comes anywhere near me and my darling Naruto, I'll castrate the son of a bitch. Koza smirked and said, let me help. It sounds fun. Why Minato ever trusted him to be a good godfather for his son eludes me. Damn naive fool. Naruto sighed and massaged his forehead tiredly. My father was an idiot, wasn't he? Kasha shook her head and said, no, he was actually a really intelligent man and a very skilled shinobi. Minato was just extrememely naive and trusted the wrong people. Gasper, who had remained quiet all this time, looked at Na and asked, nay, Na, are you still mad at Roos? Na sighed and closed his eyes as he thought over how he should respond to Gasper's question. After a while, he said, despite her reasons for going along with it, she hid my mother from me. Besides that, I get the feeling that there's more to the story that I don't know. If she wants my forgiveness, she's going to have to work for it. For now, I want nothing to do with her. And before you ask, I made a promise. I'll save her from Riza. But otherwise, she'd better leave me alone. Akano frowned sadly, but nodded her head in understanding. All right, Naruto. I'll be sure to inform her of your decision. Hopefully, she'll give you space and let you be. Though, there is one thing we'd like to do for you and Haku. Gasper, seeing where she was going with this, smiled brightly and said, a familiar, right? Na blinked and asked, what's a familiar? Rather than answer, Kusha and Akano summoned their familiars to their sides. Kusha's familiar was some kind of bird Naruto was unfamiliar with. It was an orange-reddish color and was rather large as well. Meanwhile, Akano's familiars were a bunch of creatures he could only identify as imps. Blinking a couple of times, he asked, what exactly are those things? Kusha smiled and said, this is a phoenix. His name is Blaze. I would have named him Menma. Boo, he didn't like any of the names I picked out for him, so we went with Blaze. Shrugging her shoulders, she petted Blaze gently and smiled at her son. He's really sweet if you want to hold him. Akano simply smiled at her love interest and said, these are my little friends. They're small onis commonly known as imps. Kenio-chan has a cute little kitten, which is appropriate. Kenio grumbled irritably at Akano's comment. She didn't say anything though. Instead, she listened as Akano began explaining to her beloved all about familiars. Naruto-kun, we devils make pacts with creatures that we call familiars. We befriend them and in turn they do a variety of things for us. One common usage is having them deliver flyers for us. I'll explain those in a minute. But really, familiars can do a wide variety of things. Some can aid you in combat. Others will help with chores, such as cleaning around the house. Some are meant purely for camaraderie and friendship. A lot of familiars even have the ability to take on the appearance of a human and can even talk. Kusha took over at this point. The flyers Akano mentioned are given to people so they can summon we devils to help them with a variety of things. It used to be that they could call devils for pleasures of the flesh or to exact revenge upon someone for them. However, things have changed and we will no longer accept requests like that. I don't know about you, but I'd rather not have with complete strangers. Na blushed a bit at the images running through his head after hearing that. Shaking it off, he asked, so, what kinds of requests do you typically receive? Akano shrugged and said, it varies depending on the customer. Some just want somebody to talk to about how the day went or to vent to somebody all their frustrations and woes. Others will ask devils to model for them while they draw them. And in case you're wondering, we accept payment in a variety of ways. Money, priceless artifacts, useful items, whatever, really. It used to be that devils would take their souls, but we don't do that anymore. Kasha smirked at this point and said, then there's people like Jeria. He's been blacklisted because he kept trying to pressure female devils into thinking they had to obey his every whim simply because he summoned them. That man god, he was blacklisted as well. You get all sorts of people really. I see. Is there some kind of point to doing this or is it simply for fun? Na questioned. While it sounded interesting, he just didn't see the point in doing this at all. Well, the more requests you complete, the more your power grows. Complete enough requests and prove yourself, and you can advance in rank to mid-class devil and eventually high-class devil if you work hard enough. Ano explained, I guess that's a good payoff. I wonder what type of requests I'd be asked to fulfill. Na wondered. Akano licked her lips as she looked at Na. Well, I know what I'd request. I'd have you model for me so I could paint a wonderful little picture of you. Na blushed badly and quickly shook his head. I don't know if I could do something like that. Kusha found herself giggling as she said, she has a point, though. You're handsome and you're powerful, too. You're bound to attract a lot of women. Neo sighed and nodded her head. Yes, a harem is a distinct possibility, sadly. Blushing slightly worse, Na scratched at the tip of his nose and said, I wasn't even thinking about that kind of thing. I mean, girls never really took an interest in me until now. And I suppose I'm in that kind of situation now considering I'm dating you and Haku-chan and Reina-chan has come into my life. Speaking of, why exactly is a fallen angel here? Akano questioned, narrowing her eyes at Ria. She wasn't fond of fallen angels despite being half fallen angel herself, though that's a story for another time. Reina sighed and explained the situation to Akano and whoever else didn't know the story just yet. Once she was finished, Akano sighed and said, I see. I suppose I'll trust you for now at least. If you genuinely love Naruto-kun and you seriously want to help this Osia Argento girl, I'll help. I'll try to convince Rias to lend her assistance as well. I can make no guarantees, however. But looking at Na, the half-devil smiled sadly at him and said, he'll never abandon my adorable Narok if he's planning to help you, then you have my support. The beautiful fallen angel smiled happily and said, thank you so much. You have no idea what that means to me. I want to save that poor sweet girl before anything can happen to her. My friends and I will try to deal with Donick and the rogue exorcists. But Naruto shook his head and said, I don't care how dangerous it is. I'm not letting you and your friends fight them alone. I'll be coming with you to deal with that problem. Kenio scowled at this and said, light weapons can kill you. You'd be at a disadvantage. The blonde shrugged and said, then I'll just have to be careful. I'm not going to run away at the first sign of trouble, and I'm not about to abandon a friend in need. First thing I need to do is get in touch with Asia and try to convince her to avoid Donk and the others. Shouldn't be too difficult. Reina sighed and shook her head. I don't know about that. Asia is a sweet, naive young thing. She's very trusting and she's kind to everyone. She might try to defend Dake and whoever else has gotten in touch with her. I'm worried about what they'll do to her if given the chance. I'm especially worried about what that freed person will do if given the opportunity. He's pretty much as evil a person as you can get. He's a rogue exorcist that relishes in causing other people pain, and he's not above raping a beautiful young thing like Asia. So, if you're going to save her, you'd best do it quickly. Na and the others scowled at this piece of information. Standing up, Na looked at Reina and said, "Show me where she lives. I want to get to know her immediately and try to figure out a way to protect her. I refuse to let anyone harm someone that pure." Akano nodded in agreement before she stood up as well. "I'll go inform Rias and the others of the situation. She may be upset at first, but I'll try to smooth things over for you. Just be careful, Naruto," she said, moving up close to Naro and kissing his cheek. Afterwards, she left his new home. Naruto blushed a bit but quickly shook it off. Looking at Kenyo and then at Kusha, he asked, "What are you two going to do?" Kenyo smiled slightly and said, "Coming with you." Kusha sighed and said, "I'd come with you, but I need to take inventory and see if there's anything missing. I highly doubt it, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I also need to go grocery shopping as I'm sure the food we had stocked has all gone bad by now. Chances are I'll have to do some cleaning as well." Busy be nodding in understanding. Na said, "Busy indeed. All right, let's get going, girls." And with that, he left the house with Reina and Kenyo to look for Asia. Once they were gone, Kusha frowned and said to herself, "Anos definitely hiding something about that deal Roos made with Hissen. She knows the full truth. I'm sure of it. Just what could they be hiding, though, I wonder?" Rias sighed heavily as she curled up on her bed. She was miserable right now, and the reason laid with her second rook, Naruto Uzumaki. She didn't know when, but she had slowly found herself falling in love with the young man. Yes, she was older than him by quite a few years, but love knows no bounds as far as she was concerned. The redhead knew Naruto would be mad at her when he learned the truth about his mother. But she was hiding a secret far worse than that. And she knew that if Na ever learned the full truth, he might never forgive her. Sadly, she had the feeling that Heroine would make his move sometime soon to truly sever the bond between Rias and Na. If only she knew what he had planned, she was confident she'd be able to formulate a plan to put a stop to his machinations somehow. The more she thought about Na, the more her chest constricted and hurt. She couldn't help but shed a few tears and mutter out, "Please don't leave me." It was at this point that Akano stepped into the room and said, "Roos, we have a problem." Turning to face her queen, Rias saw the serious look in her eyes and frowned deeply. Sitting up, she wiped away her tears and asked, "What's the problem, Akano? Please don't tell me something's happened to Naruto." Akano frowned and said, "It pertains to Naruto. Yes." Seeing the look of worry on Ria's face, the hybrid decided to try and assuage her worries somewhat. "No, he's not hurt. At least not yet." Rias scowled and asked, "What do you mean not yet? Has something happened to put my cute rook in danger?" In a manner of speaking, yes. Were you aware that fallen angels had moved into the abandoned church near Naruto's old apartment? Akano questioned, a deep frown on her face, eyes widening in horror. Rias shouted, "What? Don't tell me." Akano shook her head and said, "No, they haven't heard him yet. A fallen angel by the name of Reina found Naruto before we could. She told him damn near everything you were waiting to tell him until we got home about the various factions, the wars, him being dead, etc. Naruto wasn't happy about having to learn all of that from someone that wasn't you, Ria-sama. But that's not the problem." Sighing softly, Akano took a seat beside Rias and continued. "Manado asked Reina to watch over Naruto if something happened to him. Ria at least has been around in Konoha for at least as long as we have been, perhaps even longer. She's fallen in love with Naruto as well." Roos growled and exclaimed, "But he's mine. I won't let her just have him without a fight." Akano giggled a bit and said, "Narok's going to have a herm. You know that as well as I do. Regardless, that's not the main problem we're now faced with. You see, a fallen angel by the name of Dake has secured a girl by the name of Osia Aranto and brought her here to Konoha. Asia has the twilight healing as well, just like Haku. Dake wants that power for himself and is going to kill Asia to get it. Ria has asked that Naruto save her from such a fate. The big problem comes from the fact that rogue exorcists, including a man named Freed, have joined the fallen angels. If Naruto tries to help Asia, how dare she put my sweet Rook in such danger? What the hell is she thinking? Roos exclaimed angrily. Hasn't he been warned that light weapons can hurt him, potentially kill him? And does he know yet that holy ground will weaken him? He doesn't realize the kind of danger he's in by agreeing to do this. Then we should have been more honest with him from the start. Yes, Wave might not have been the ideal place to discuss everything, but we should have told him something. Roos, he doesn't trust us now because we kept everything from him. Roos, we need to help him before he gets himself killed. And if that means working with that fallen angel and her friends, I'll put aside my differences and do it. What about you? Akano questioned. Roos didn't even need time to think on it. Of course, we're going to help him. I refuse to watch Naruto die again. Get Car and the others. We're going to exterminate those wretched rogues and keep Naruto safe. Akano smiled at her dearest friend and nodded, leaving the room to go and fetch the others as she had been instructed. The hybrid smiled and said to herself, "You will be safe, Naruto. Let your lovely Akano-chan do all the dirty work for you." Hirozen. The third Hokage scowled as he went through his paperwork. He was barely focused on it, idly reading through everything and either approving or disapproving of a variety of things and filing things as needed. No, his mind was more focused on one particular subject. Naruto Uzumaki, that stupid Uchiha just had to ruin our weapon. It's going to take a bit of work, but I can't have other villagers learning that our Genchiri isn't a Genchiri any longer. If Danzo was still alive, I could have made use of him. Could have told him to bring me the Genchiri from Taki, that Fu girl. But no, he had to be a blasted fool and enrage Rias. That's another problem. Those damn devils. If she had simply cooperated from the start and not tried to twist my arm, I could have been rid of her ages ago. I could make use of him, I suppose. Riser Phoenix. High scowled and put down his pen. Massaging the bridge of his nose, he opened his eyes when he sensed a strange power spring up in his office. Quickly dismissing his Anu, he watched as a tall blonde man with an arrogant smirk on his face appeared. Narrowing his eyes at him, Harrison asked, "Why are you here, Riser?" "I'm getting tired of waiting, old man. Bring Roos before me so I can take her away from this cesspit you call a village," Riser demanded, scowling at the Phoenix. Hirozen shook his head and said, "Not yet. You need to learn some patience. Just wait a bit longer and you'll get everything you wanted and then some." Riser scowled and shouted, "I'm tired of being patient, old fool. She is mine. I refuse to let any pathetic human from your village lay a finger on her. I won't have my bride sully before I can break her in. Don't forget, Phoenix, I can and will break you. You may be a devil and you may be strong, but you forget that. For as strong as you are, I'm your better. You'd be wise not to question me, little boy. Now, when I tell you to be patient, you will be patient. Is that understood?" Hirozen exclaimed, flaring his power to get his point across to the arrogant devil. The womanizer scowled, but reluctantly nodded his head. "Fine. When will you be ready to hand her over to me?" "Soon," Hirozen said, and rested his chin atop his steepled hands. "Your time to strike will be during the Chunin exams coming up in a couple of months. Her new Rook and Pawn will be participating in the exams. Once they're busy, I'll notify you of where Roos is hiding. Go there and do whatever you want with her. I couldn't care less. And if you absolutely must challenge her to a rating game, as you people call it, then make sure to wait for the day of the final matches. I have a strong feeling Naruto-kun and Haku-chan will be making it through to the finals. By waiting until then, you ensure that two of her most valuable pieces will be unavailable to assist her. Your victory over her will be all but assured at that point. If you screw up the timing, I'll fry you like the roasted chicken you are. Do I make myself clear, boy?" Bristling at the insult, Riser wanted to lash out against Hiroen, but he knew that such a fight wouldn't go his way. Maybe if he had brought his Purage with him, he could use them to wear the old bastard down enough to actually kill him. But he hadn't exactly thought this plan through very well. No, for now, he'd have to play by Serby's rules. "Fine. Just make sure nobody touches her. I want her to stay pure for me so I can crush her heart, mind, body, and spirit. She'll be my greatest trophy." He simply waved him off and said, "I wouldn't worry too much about it. She's only interested in her new rook, Naruto Uzumaki. And I've already made sure that their relationship's been damaged to the point he no longer trusts her. Of course, it was a double-edged sword strike, so to speak, considering he no longer trusts me either. Either way, with their relationship damaged to such an extent, it will be all too easy for me to sever that bond completely. Trust me, when I'm done, Naruto won't even attempt to come to her rescue. Your victory will be all but assured. I guarantee it. Riza chuckled and said, I swear you're eviler than I am. As much as I dislike your kind, you've proven to be a valuable ally to have. Once Rias and I are out of your hair, I hope you take real good care of that rook of hers. Why do you even keep something like that around anyways? The Hokage shrugged and said, he was useful for a time, but his usefulness has come to an end now that foolish Uchiha broke my weapon. Once Rias has been successfully cowed and Kusha has been dealt with, I'll rid myself of that boy. Hell, I might even be labeled a hero for killing the Kyuubi brat. My legacy would live on forever in that case. I see, you've really thought all of this through. Tell me though, why did you let Rias get so close to your weapon? Riza questioned curiously. It was an arrangement made between us in exchange for keeping the boy's mother from him. I hadn't expected to lose the Kyuubi as a result, however. A miscalculation on my part. Regardless, what's done is done. For now, all you need to do is be patient for a while longer. You'll get what's coming to you, and I'll finally be rid of one more nuisance plaguing my village. It's a win-win for the both of us, Hisan stated. Afterwards, the two men chuckled evilly for a time before going their separate ways. Naruto smiled sadly as he watched the beautiful young woman known as Osia Aranto. She was truly as beautiful as he had imagined both inside and out. She was currently going out of her way to tend to a wounded child who had been injured while playing with his friends. She really is a sweetheart, isn't she? Questioned nobody. Reina smiled and said she's a good person. I'm sure she'll love getting to know you, Nakan. Why don't you go talk to her? The whiskered blonde frowned and said, I don't know what I'd say to her. I have no idea how I'm even supposed to keep her safe. Kenio grabbed Naruto's hand and walked with him up to the girl. Talk, she commanded. Naruto's sweat dropped before turning to smile at Asia. When the girl turned to face him, Naruto said, Hi there, Asia-chan. The name's Naruto Uzumaki. Can we talk for a while? I know a place that serves some good food. If you want to get something to eat with me. Asia blinked in shock at the name and looked a bit worried. Naruto Uzumaki, she asked when he nodded in confirmation. She went, eep, and bowed to him. I'm sorry, Mr. Demon, sir. I didn't mean to offend you in any way. Keniko scowled at the girl while Na just looked perplexed. Then, realizing what was going on, he sighed and facepalmed hard. Dragging his hand down his face, he said, You've been talking to the villagers too much. Let me guess, they warned you to stay away from me because I'm an evil demon, didn't they? And because you heard it so often, you just assumed they were right. Am I right? The cute blonde looked into his eyes and nodded a few times. Yes, but looking him over, she frowned and said, You don't look anything like what they described. Sighing again, Naruto took Asia by the hand and began walking with her towards Ramen Aichi. I'll explain everything in a bit. Let's get some food in our bellies while we talk. Okay. Asia smiled brightly and nodded her head in acceptance. Of course, Uzumaki. Oh. Is it okay to call you that? Na chuckled softly as he entered the ramen stand with the adorable healer. Gently pushing her into a seat, he sat beside her and said, You can call me Naruto if you'd like. So long as you don't mind me calling you Asia-chan. Asia blushed a bit and said, That's fine, Naran. What is this place? It smells lovely. The whiskered teen quirked a brow at her and asked, You've never had ramen before? Seeing her shake her head negatively, he nodded in understanding. All right, I think you'll enjoy this then, old man. Well, take 2 miso ramen to get us started off. Make sure to really work your magic on Asia-chan's bowl. It's her first time having ramen. Tuki grinned at Na and said, 1 super deluxe miso ramen coming right up for the lovely lady. Na chuckled a bit before turning to look at Asia. So, what exactly have the villagers been telling you about me? Asia frowned and tapped a finger against her chin. Well, they said you were some big evil demon with 9 tails that enjoys causing destruction for the fun of it. They said that you had corrupted a bunch of innocent children and that you devour babies. They claimed that the fourth Hokage sealed you in your current form to make it easier to kill you. But Naruto blinked for a moment before shaking his head in mild disbelief. Wow, just how many people are breaking the old bastard's law and getting away with it? He wondered aloud, sighing softly. He looked into Asia's eyes and said, well, I can tell you that that's all false. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I was born the day of the Kyuubi attack. You see, on the night of my birth, the Kyuubi attacked the village. I don't know why or what exactly happened. All I really do know is that shortly after my birth, my parents had no choice but to seal the Kyuubi within me, thus making me its jailer. So you see, Asia-chan, I am not the demon. I simply hold the beast at bay. Or at least I used to. When Naruto sighed, Asia placed a gentle hand upon his and asked, what do you mean? Did something bad happen to you? Na smiled at her before giving a nod to Kenio in greeting when she entered the stand and ordered some ramen for herself. Turning back to Asia, he said, a boy named Sasuke Uchiha. Seeing her eyes light up in recognition of the name, the spiky-haired blonde sighed and asked, what have the people told you about him? I'm curious. Asia smiled brightly and said, they said that Sasuke is a prodigy unlike anything this village has seen before. He's smart, kind, wise, and incredibly powerful. They say that he'll eventually be able to control the demon, and they'll all finally be safe from its blight upon the world. They even said that he's destined to be Hokage someday. Despite herself, Kenio snickered in amusement at that. Naruto chuckled softly at that before he looked into Asia's eyes and shook his head. Sorry to say, but Sasuke is none of those things. Years ago, Sasuke's brother killed damn near everyone in the Uchiha clan, sparing only his little brother. Now, most people would have you believe that Itachi killed them to test his power, and only Sasuke escaped alive. The truth is, nobody really knows why Itachi did it. Personally, I think the Uchihas were planning something big and he was ordered to take him out. As for sparing Sasuke, Itachi didn't want to kill Sasuke. It's as simple as that. Sighing softly, Na ran his fingers through his hair, brushing it back. Anyways, Sasuke became arrogant and so full of himself. He belittles everyone, treats people as if they're worth less than dirt. Let's just say he's not a good person. The people of the village have spoiled him rotten and he thinks he can get away with doing whatever he wants. Frowning deeply, Na turned when his ramen was placed in front of him. Muttering a quick prayer, he ate a little before continuing. When we graduated, I was placed on a team with Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno with Kakashi Hatake as Arjun and Sensei. Sasuke and I hate each other. On our most recent mission outside of the village, he killed me in an effort to save himself. Asia gasped in horror while Kenio accidentally broke her chopsticks into pieces. She was clenching them so tight. But why? You seem so nice. Because Sasuke cares for nothing but himself. He's the only thing that matters in his world. I was just an expendable pawn in his game of life. Anyways, sighing again, Naruto looked at his bowl of ramen and said, when I was killed, the Kyuubi died with me. The ex-nun blinked and asked, but you're sitting right here talking with me. What exactly happened? And isn't the being dead now a good thing? Tuki frowned as he looked at Na. Na, my boy, what exactly happened to you? You say you died, but you're right here in front of me. Tell us what the heck happened. Naruto nodded and looked behind him towards the kitchen. Ayami-chan, you might want to come out here, too. I think you all need to hear this. Clanging sounds could be heard in the back of the stand before Ayami came out, wiping her hands off with a wash rag. Naruto-kun, are you okay? Na sighed again and said, Rias Grammary had to revive me as part of her team. Revealing his bat-like wings, he flapped them a few times and smiled sadly at his loved ones and then at Asia. I've been revived as a devil, Asia gasped. But rather than flinch away or scream or anything else that he might have expected, she instead threw her arms around him and hugged him tight. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. You seem so nice, and contrary to popular belief, I think there's good in everyone. Or at least everyone has the potential for good in them. It doesn't matter if you're an angel, a fallen angel, a devil, or whatever else you might be. But why are you telling me all this? Gently wrapping his arms around Asia, Naruto held her close and said, it's because I want to protect you, Asia-chan. You were brought here by a man named Danik. Correct. Looking up into Naruto's eyes, the beautiful young woman nodded. Yes, he said that even though I was excommunicated from the main church in the middle of the land of fire, I still had the potential to do good in me. He promised that if I came with him here to Konoha that I'd be able to help people again. He even said he had a special surprise for me if I do good work. Na frowned and shook his head. Asia-chan don't seek isn't a good person. Seeing her about to interrupt him, Naruto held up his hand to silence her. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this because I'm concerned for you. A trusted source informed me that Don Seek is planning to kill you so he can take your sacred gear for himself. He doesn't care about you, Asia-chan. I only want to protect you. Asia looked like she was about to cry. But why? I thought. Brushing her bangs out of her face, Naruto placed a tender kiss upon her forehead. Asia-chan, come live with me. I promise I'll keep you safe no matter what. Nobody will ever hurt you again. Not the church, not the fallen angels, not even my fellow devils. You'll be safe with me, please. Looking into his eyes searchingly, Asia found that he was telling her the truth. He was being sincere in his worry for her. Frowning, she returned to her stool and sat there for a time as her bowl was put in front of her. Thank you, Naran. You're very sweet, I think. Looking into his eyes, she nodded determinedly and said, I think I'd like to move in with you if you'll have me. I don't really have anywhere to call home yet in this village. Na smiled at her and gently petted her head. Thank you, Asia-chan. Now, go ahead and eat up. I promise you'll like it. Asia smiled brightly and began to dig in. The moment she tongue was hit with the flavor, she squealed in delight before devouring her meal with gusto. When she was finished, she looked at Na and asked, Can I have more, please? That was so good. Na chuckled softly and nodded. Another round, old man. Tuki simply chuckled and went to get to work on the next round of ramen for everyone, Kenako included. Meanwhile, Ayami stared sadly at Na. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about what happened to you, Naruto. But there's more you're not telling us, isn't there? Naruto sighed and nodded his head in confirmation. Yes, Rias and the old man did something terrible. My mom's been alive all this time as a member of Roos' team. They kept her from me. Roos had her reasons, I suppose, but that old bastard. He's lucky I don't try to kill him for the shit he's pulled. Ayami gasped, and Tuki clearly dropped some dishes in the kitchen, judging by the sounds they heard coming from there. Asia, on the other hand, looked horrified by what she had just heard. They kept your mother from you. How? How old are you now? Na said. 15. They kept my mother from me for 15 years. I told Kasha that I don't need a mother anymore, but I'm willing to try and be friends. That's the best we can really hope for at this point. Asia surprised him by giving Na another hug. Can you find it in your heart to forgive her? Your mother. I mean, the whiskered teen frowned and said, Her? Yes, Rias, maybe with enough time, but the Hokage, hell no, not after what I've learned. Asia smiled up at him and said, That's all I can ask for. Forgiveness is important, but even I understand that some crimes cannot be forgiven. Akama, I don't think God will forgive me for healing that devil, but I still feel it was the right thing to do. Na placed a firm hand on her shoulder and shook his head. Asia-chan, there's nothing to forgive. You were wrongly judged and scorned for using your gifts to help somebody. You shouldn't feel any shame in doing the right thing. Race and gender shouldn't matter to anyone, and nobody should have the right to decide who lives and who dies. You did the right thing, and you should be proud of yourself for it. Screw what those people might think and say about you. I think you're a wonderful person. Asia-chan. Asia blushed and tightened her hold on him. Resting her head against his chest, she said, Thank you, Naruto-san. May God bless you. Seeing him flinch and hold his head in pain, Asia blinked a moment before realization struck her. I'm so sorry, I forgot. Na chuckled nervously and massaged his temples to try and stave off the growing headache. It's fine, Asia-chan. I'm not upset with you. You didn't mean any harm by it. Just try to be a bit more careful from now on. Okay. Nodding in understanding, Asia offered him a bright smile before she returned to her meal and began consuming it again. Moaning slightly in delight, she couldn't help but hum happily to herself. Seeing this, Na chuckled and thought, So long as I live, Nobody will ever harm you again, Asia ch. Anne. Rias. Rias scowled as she looked at the fallen angel standing before her. You must be Reina. How dare you put my Naruto-kun in such a dangerous situation? What were you thinking? You're Naruto-kun. Someone's feeling a little possessive. Reina commented bluntly. After a moment, she shrugged her shoulders and said, he won't be in any danger if we hurry and eliminate Fried and the other scumbags Donnie has recruited. My friends Kalona and Mittel will help us to destroy them now. Are you going to help me deal with them, or do I need to ask Naruto-kun to help me kill them? Rue's scowl deepened as she growled out. Don't bring him into this. We'll help you put down those monsters that dare to threaten Naruto's existence. But afterwards, Reina frowned at her and shook her head. I'm not leaving Naruto-kun alone. I stayed out of his life for as long as I did because I knew how you and your purge would have reacted to me trying to reach out to him. I'm not just going to give up on him now that I've finally talked to him. Face it, Mori. I'm in his life now and I'm not leaving. Roos looked about ready to blow a gasket, but after a while, she reined in her temper and took a few deep, calming breaths. Fine, but nope, not going to hear it. Now, let's go, Reina said, waving her off dismissively as she began making her way towards the church. Mittel and Kaloa would meet them there and they could put a stop to Don and his evil ways. The beautiful redhead gawked in disbelief at being dismissed so easily. Eyes narrowing, she mumbled to herself, Narok's first time will be mine if I have anything to say about it. And with that, she and her peerage, Sons Naruto and Kenyo, made their way towards the abandoned church in the Red Lee GHT district. They had some evildoers to exterminate in an innocent young woman to protect. The battle against Fried, and the other enemies could hardly even be called a true battle. Roos had been so pissed off by freaking everything that had been going wrong lately. And now to learn her Naruto was in danger because of the stupid fallen angel known as Reina. It was just a bit too much for her. Shortly after entering the church, Roos didn't even wait for a sign to begin, nor did she wait for anyone to speak. Instead, she walked forward, calm as can be until her enemies began to approach her. As soon as they did, she raised her hands to her sides and snarled out, Begone pests. Nobody will ever hurt my Naruto-kun. And with that, she proceeded to unleash her immense power. A power referred to as the power of destruction upon the fools that had dared to encroach upon her territory. No, what happened could never be referred to as a battle. To imply such a thing would give the baddies too much credit. What took place in the run-down church could best be described as a massacre. Brutal, efficient, and deadly, these words described Rias and her power quite well. Not even Fried had escaped her wrath. The two of them were the last obstacles in her path, and she didn't even give them time to think, let alone flee to safety. No, Rias destroyed them. Blinking a couple of times in shock and a terrifying feeling of horror, Reina looked at Rias, whose body was still emitting that same deadly aura as before. Holy note to self, do not piss off Rias Mori. Then again, if she tries to keep me from my darling Naruto-kun, we will have a fight on our hands. As if sensing eyes upon her, Rias turned around and smiled sweetly at Reina and the others. Is something the matter? She asked pleasantly. Everyone quickly shook their heads. Ria-sama, are you going to be okay? Ha asked cautiously. The beautiful redhead continued to smile as she turned her gaze to her knight. I'm fine. Perfectly fine. Why? What could possibly be wrong with me? Everyone decided to simply let the matter drop. They were too terrified of Rias in her current state to even try to broach the subject. However, after taking a moment to think on it, Akano stepped closer to Rias and held her hands up, trying to show she wasn't a threat. Once she was close enough, she waited for Rias to calm down some before placing her hand on her master's shoulder. Rias, maybe we should try and talk to Naruto-kun. I think he deserves to hear the whole truth from us before the Hokage can poison his mind against us. Rias closed her eyes and did her best to calm herself. After a time, her power receded back into her body, and she slowly reached up, clinging to Akano's shirt, burying her face in her queen's neck. The redhead began to sob. I don't know if I can. He's already so angry with me. Her whole body was quivering at this point. I don't want him to hate me. I never wanted him to hate me. I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think I'd fall in love with him, but I did. And now that he's so angry at me, It hurts. It really hurts. What if by telling him the whole truth, he starts to really hate me? What if he doesn't want me in his life anymore? I can't do this, Akano. I don't want to lose him. Akano smiled sadly at her dearest friend and held her close, gently running her fingers through the redhead's long tresses. Rias, sometimes you just have to take a risk and hope for the best. If Naruto learns the truth from Hirozen, then we'll lose him forever. You know how that man is, what he's like now that things are the way they are. And Naruto-kun has started down a spiral of anger and hatred, distrust and paranoia. Sighing, she closed her eyes and rested her chin atop her friend's head. It's the perfect time for Hirozen to swoop in and deal the finishing blow. If we don't tell him first, Hirozen will twist the truth around and then Naruto will really hate you. We can't let that happen. Roos flinched and clung tighter to Renault's shirt. Taking some time to think everything over, she looked up into her friend's eyes and asked, should we go tell him now? I don't know if I can but I don't want to lose him because of that wretched man. Please take me to him. Akano nodded and smiled kindly at her king before petting her hair gently. Sure. Rias. Looking to the others, the Seto masochist smiled at them pleasantly and said, we're going to pay a visit to Naruto. Please come with us. You all deserve to hear the truth as well. I just hope this doesn't blow up in our faces. Car simply smiled and said, of course. I think he should be home by now. Don't you think? Let us pay him a visit. Then Reina and her friends Mittel and Kaloa frowned for a moment before they nodded in agreement. I want to see how Asia's doing as well. So, well, come with you. But if you upset Naruto-kun more and cause him more stress, we'll be having words. Rias looked calmly into the woman's eyes and said, what I have to tell him will hurt, but he deserves to hear the truth from me and not that old bastard. I can't guarantee how Naruto-kun will take it, but it's pretty much guaranteed that he'll be upset more than he already is. The fallen angel frowned for a time, but eventually nodded her head in acceptance. Very well. All we can do is be there for him and help him through this whole process. Thank you. Let us be off, Rias said before she used her sleeves to wipe her eyes free of the tears. Naruto-kun, I'm coming. Please don't hate me for this. Naruto's home. When Na and his friends entered his home, he and Kenio quickly took notice that Kusha wasn't home. Frowning in thought for a moment, Na soon brought his fist down against the palm of his other hand and smiled. She did say she needed to shop for groceries. Guess we'll be seeing her a little later. Then turning back to Asia and Kenio, he smiled kindly at them before inviting them inside. Taking seats upon the various pieces of furniture, Naruto smiled at Asia and said, well, Asia-chan, this is our home. You'll always be safe here, and I'm going to do my best to make sure you stay happy as well. I'd offer you some cookies or something, but I don't think we have any food just yet, let alone tasty snacks like those. The blonde healer smiled at her new friend and said, that's all right. Thank you for thinking of me. At least I'm very grateful to you, Naruto-kun. You've been far kinder to me than anyone I can remember. I've had more fun with you than I've ever had before. You've made me happy today. I can't help but wonder if this is what it's like to have a brother, to have family. Na wrapped an arm around Asia and hugged her closer to him. Well, if you want me to be your honorary big brother, then I'll be glad to accept that role. I'll be the best big brother you could have ever asked for. Giggling a bit, Asia nestled against her new friend and closed her eyes. Thank you, Naruto. I think I'm just going to rest here for a little while. Na chuckled a bit, but before he could say anything, he heard Asia's soft breathing, signifying that she had fallen asleep while leaning against him. As her breath brushed against his neck, Naruto felt a pleasant tingle throughout his body. Blushing, he did his best to calm his nerves. But with every breath, he'd feel that feeling more and more. It was getting to be a bit too much stimulation. Suddenly, the door opened and in walked Kusha, carrying with her numerous bags. Looking at her, he was about to offer to help her, but she shook her head at him. It's okay. Neo can help me. You just stay right there. Don't want to wake your new friend now, do you? The blonde simply smiled in thanks and watched as Kenio went to assist the bishop. He watched them for a short time before he returned his attention to his sleeping companion. Gently squeezing her arm to show his support, he brought her closer against him and said quietly, nobody will ever hurt you again, Asia-chan. Let your new brother deal with everything. After a period of silence between everyone, Naruto was caught off guard when Kusha began to speak from her place in the kitchen. Naruto, you should know that Rias went with your new friend, Reina, to deal with the threat. They'll have everything taken care of shortly, I'm sure. Seeing her son nod, signifying that he understood, Kasha soon entered the room and sat down in one of the free chairs. Looking into his eyes, she said, I'm sure you suspected it as well, but I believe Akano knows more than she's letting on. She and Rias are likely hiding even more from all of us. I don't know what it could be. But before either of them could say any more, a chime sounded throughout the house. Sighing to herself, Kusha stood up and opened the front door to see who could be disturbing them. Eyes widening slightly at what she saw, she soon narrowed them and stepped out of the house. Approaching the gate that barred entrance into her home, she asked, What are you doing here, Roos? The busty, crimson-haired woman frowned and asked, Can we please come in, Kusha? There's something important we need to discuss, and it involves Naruto. Frowning at her, Kusha was ready to snap at the woman. However, rather than blow up at her king, she asked, Can this wait? I think Naruto has been through way more than enough today. He needs his rest. Roos shook her head and said, It's best if we get this out of the way now. Before Hirozen can act to make things even worse than they already are. I wouldn't put it past him to pull something soon. So, please let us in so we can talk. Kusha scowled for a time before she eventually grumbled irritably to herself and allowed Rias and the group with her into her home. Sealing the gate shut once the last of them had come in, she activated the seals once more and followed them into the house. Seeing the look her son was giving her, Kusha sighed heavily and said, Sorry, Naruto, but I think this is important. Let's hear her out before we do something we might regret. Frowning deeper, Na was about to say something when he felt Asia's hand gently tugging at his shirt. Glancing down into her eyes, he frowned in confusion and opened his mouth to ask a question. However, she spoke up before he could. Please hear her out. I don't know what's happened between you, but you shouldn't carry around such hatred and anger in your heart. That's easier said than done, Asia-chan, but all right, I'll hear her out. Looking into Ria's eyes at this point, he asked, What did you need, Rias? Rias flinched at the lack of the chan suffix, but decided not to dwell on it. Closing her eyes, she took a deep breath in and released it slowly. She repeated this a few more times, obviously trying to calm her nerves so she could speak clearly. Naruto, it's really important that you hear this. You deserve to know the whole truth and not whatever BS his will try to feed you. If I don't come out and tell you this now, then Hirozen will most assuredly approach you and tell you his version of things. Roos began. Naruto, I've always known you were special. Ever since you were born, I had my eye on you. Something about you intrigued me. It wasn't the fact that you housed the Kaibi, nor was it your connection to your parents. Heck, it wasn't even your sacred gear that caught my attention. There was just something that drew me to you. I can't really put it into words. Sorry. Anyways, fast forward a ways and we come to the meeting with Hirozen. When he revealed that Manado had foolishly left notes about us, he tried to blackmail me into doing his bidding. However, while I agreed to work for him, there was a stipulation that I put forth in exchange. Roos explained. Na frowned at this point and asked, I'm not going to like this, am I? The redhead shook her head. No, but it needs to be said. It was a dangerous ploy, but I convinced her to allow me to bring you into my peerage. I wanted you to be a part of my family. I sensed greatness in you, and I didn't want to risk losing you. Sighing sadly, she couldn't even look him in the eyes anymore. Naruto-kun, I made him promise that he'd put you in a situation where you couldn't refuse me. I would revive you as a member of my peerage and make use of you to deal with my delicate situation. I knew you would likely be killed on a mission outside of the village, which would give me the perfect opportunity to revive you as part of my family. The spiky-haired blonde clenched his fists tightly as anger boiled inside of him. Before he could lash out at the conniving witch, Asia squeezed his hand tight, getting his attention. Shush. Just listen. I think she has more to say. Taking a few deep, calming breaths, Naruto glared into Ria's eyes and said, What else? The crimson-haired beauty looked into his eyes with a hint of a blush on her cheeks. Naruto, while originally I just wanted to use you to get me out of a bad situation, I hadn't calculated something that happened as I watched you grow. Raising a brow, Naruto asked, and what would that be? Naruto peering deep into his eyes. Ria smiled slightly and said, I slowly found myself falling in love with you. You may be a lot younger than me, but love knows no bounds and all that. After a time, I just couldn't use you. I just wanted you to be happy, and I wanted to be close to you. I just wanted to be your friend, and maybe something more later down the road. I didn't even care anymore if I got you in my peerage or not. All I wanted was to be with you. Naruto's eyes were wide for a time, but after a while, he closed his eyes and said, and you couldn't tell me any of this before. Why exactly? I was afraid. I was so afraid you'd hate me. I couldn't bear to have you mad at me. I love you, Naruto. I well and truly love you. Just the thought of hurting you, of losing you, it hurts so much. Then Naruto nodded in understanding and said, Kusha was finally ready to meet me and you struck a new deal with the Hokage. Correct? Ria scowled and said, yes. When I approached him about Koza, declaring that I'd be introducing Kusha to you, he decided to take his blackmail a bit further. Somehow, he had obtained a contract with Riza Phoenix. All he had to do was make use of the seal given to him, and he could have summoned Riza right then and there. It was either as heroes and commanded of us, in this case, hiding your mother from you, or he would call Riza then and there. I didn't have a choice. I wasn't ready to face Riza back then. I was too afraid to make a move against him yet. Kusha scowled and said, the more I hear about that evil son of a, the more I want to kill him. Akeno nodded in agreement. The third is corrupt and has let his position of power go to his head. If I could get away with killing him, I would. Naruto frowned at this and after taking some time to think on it, he looked into Ria's eyes and asked, what if he's already met Riza? If the Hokage is as corrupt as you say he is, then wouldn't he have already been in contact with Riza? They could be waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Everyone's eyes widened at the implication of what Naruto had just said. After coming to her own realization, Roos clenched her fists tight and said, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't put it past that bastard to pull something like that. If they have made a deal, then anything could happen. Naruto, I want you to be very careful from now on. There's no telling what could happen if they're in contact with one another. I wouldn't put it past Riza to attack you at some point just to prove a point to me. So, please be safe. Okay. Nodding once, Na decided to just come out and say it. Russian, I'm sorry. I didn't even stop to think about all the possibilities. Nor did I think about how you felt or anything. I should have waited until I had the full truth before I did anything. Sighing heavily, he gently squeezed Asia's hand for support and said, I'll be honest with you. I'm still upset with you, but I can't entirely blame you. Despite everything, I do care about you. I don't want to hate you or be angry at you or anything really. You're one of my dearest friends, and I never wanted to hurt you in any way. Still, I was pissed off. I still am. But I can't place all the blame on you. Not after hearing all of this. Asia smiled at her brother figure and asked, so, will you forgive her? Na sighed again and said, yeah, I guess I will, but looking hard into Ria's eyes, he said, don't betray my trust again and be honest with me fro. Now on. No more lies. No more hiding things from me. I want you to trust in me just as I'll trust in you. Roos couldn't help herself as she began to cry again. Nodding her head rapidly, she said, I'll never hurt you again. I swear it. Just please, please don't leave me. I'd die without you in my life. I couldn't bear it if I lost you. Blushing at her words, Na glanced away and scratched at the tip of his nose. That's a little much, but thank you. Akeno giggled to herself and said, we'll be all right. The Hokage won't tear us apart. Now, why don't you introduce us to the cute little thing next to you? She seems so sweet. Asia meeped and clung to her brother figure. Chuckling at this, Na said, I'm sure you already know who she is, but this is Asia Argento. I've kind of adopted her as my little sister. Smirking at Asia, he nudged her gently in the side to get her attention back on him. Asia-chan, let me introduce you to my family and friends. And with that, he took the time to introduce each of his purge members and Reina. When it came time to introduce Mittel and Caller, he blinked and said, I actually have no idea who they are. Ryo-chan. Ria smiled at him before motioning towards her friends. Meet Middle and Caller. They're two of my dearest friends. I'm glad that you finally get to meet them. I hope you all get along splendidly. Na smiled at them and said, it's a pleasure to meet you both. Just out of curiosity, do you three have anywhere to live? If you don't, you might as well move in here with us. You're more than welcome to if you have nowhere else to go. Middle smirked as she nudged Reina. Oh, he's a keeper. You're just the sweetest thing, aren't you, Naruto-kun? No, we don't have any place to live. We were only sent to be observers for the time being. Reina, though, has been living here for years now. Also, she could watch over you. Call Warner and I, on the other hand, only arrived here recently. The blue-haired fallen angel smirked and said, we'd be glad to move in with you, but we first need to report into Azul-sama. He needs to know what's happened here after all. Then if he permits it, we'll be glad to return and live here with you. Ria sighed and hung her head for a moment. Damn it, more competition. Kusha, noticing this, giggled for a moment before saying, as fun as this all is, I think it's time we all went home and got some sleep. It's late and we're all exhausted. Mittelner, go and meet with your leader. Then, if he permits it, you can return here. I'll get you keyed into the seals so you can come and go as you please. And Naruto-kun, once she had his attention, the redhead smiled sweetly at him and said, please don't act on any of your potential impulses. I don't want to be made a grandmother too soon. Na stared in a complete deadpan at Kusha. I'm more controlled than that. Besides, it's not really your place to tell me if I can be intimate with my loved ones or not. The redhead shook her head and said, relax. I was only teasing. There's silencing seals throughout the house. So, please make use of those if you're going to do that with somebody. Inside, though, she couldn't help but frown sadly. He was serious. I guess I really can't play the worried mother card anymore. I've lost that chance. Sighing softly to himself, Na soon stood up and looked at Asia. Come on, Asia-chan. Let's get a room picked out for you. I think you'll like it here. I'm sure I will too. He said with a chuckle as if suddenly realizing something. Hakuno shot up and said, wait, Naruto-kun, we need to take you and Haku to get your familiars. Will tomorrow night work for you? Naruto blinked for a moment as he looked between Hakuno and Haku, who had been rather silent this entire time. Sure. What do you think, Haku-chan? Haku smiled and said, that sounds lovely to me. I'm eager to meet whomever I end up with. I get the feeling a fox might be perfect for you though, Naruto-kun. Chuckling softly at the teasing, Na said, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, if there's nothing else, I'd very much like to go and get some sleep. I'm exhausted. Roos smiled sweetly at him and said, that's everything, Naruto-kun. Sleep well. Okay, thanks, Russian. Good night, Naruto said before he walked off with Asia to pick out their rooms. Once they were out of sight, Kusha looked into Ria's eyes and said, I'm still upset with you. But I understand your position. I don't like you planning to manipulate Naruto-kun like that, but I'll forgive you just as my son has. Just don't go betraying our trust again. Roos nodded and said, of course, Kusha. But the Uzumaki shook her head and said, we need to do something about Hirozen. I know. Unfortunately, killing him won't solve our problems. If we act hastily without thinking this through, somebody even worse might take over, and we'd have even worse to deal with. We need to find some way to locate Sunyunad and convince her to return to Konoha to take the mantle of 5th Hokage. Roos nodded in agreement. If we can't locate her in time, Jiraiya might take over, and that would just be another damn problem. He might be even worse than Hirozen. Shuddering, Hakuno said, I can only imagine what he'd do if he were in charge. No thank you. As they talked, not one of them had noticed Kenyo sneaking out of the room. Well, not everyone. Smirking to herself, Reina thought. I should have thought of that first. Oh well, enjoy cuddling up with Naruto while you can, Neo. Soon enough, it'll be me at his side. Turning her attention back to the discussion taking place, Reina asked, if we're so worried about Jiraiya, couldn't we just, kill him and be done with it? Kasha turned to Ria and shook her head. Unfortunately, Jiraiya is important to the village. He works as Konoha's spy master and has built up an impressive network of information gathering. Killing him would only Konoha in the long run. We don't want that, Reina shrugged. You make a good point. Still, if he tries anything, we'll just have to get creative. At that comment, the women began to chuckle evilly. Meanwhile, Car just smiled awkwardly beside Gasper, who could only watch the proceedings with wide eyes. Just grin and bear it. Women are terrifying, Car said to his companion. Gasper slowly nodded, but didn't utter a word. The next day, Na wanted to scowl at the man sitting before him, but decided to keep a neutral expression on his face so as not to alarm his guest. Sitting before him on one of his chairs was Hirozen Serbi. He had that same grandfatherly expression on his face that he always had, but now that Naruto knew the truth, he could barely stomach looking at the man, let alone his damned smile. What do you need, Hokage-sama? Naruto, there's a few reasons I came here today. The first reason is because I wanted to personally escort you to the hospital so you can undergo the transplant. After all, you are taking Sasuke's sharing, are you not? Hai said kindly. Na blinked and said, I kind of forgot about that with all that happened yesterday. Hai nodded and said, understandable, Naruto, you've been through a lot lately, far too much than someone your age should have to deal with. Which is why this second topic is so hard to discuss. It's bound to only compound your reasons for being upset with myself and Rias. But you deserve to hear the truth from me. So here it is. Na inwardly sighed and listened as Hirozen began to speak. I'm about to hear a lot of I wish I had Kenyo with me right now. Naruto, on the night of your birth, I knew you were special. You were meant to do great things. However, shortly after I retook the mantle of Hokage, Rias Grammary approached me. She insisted that you be given to her to be resurrected as one of her pieces. Your whole life, she's been trying to manipulate you in an attempt to get you on her side. I do not know the full reason behind her desire to have you, nor do I understand her circumstances. However, I tried to argue on your behalf. However, she revealed to me that she had Kusha in her clutches and threatened to keep her from you if I didn't let you have her. We all know how that turned out in the end. Hai said, releasing a soft sigh afterwards. Man, it almost sounds like he believes this. If he wasn't such an, I'd recommend he take up a career in acting. He'd make a killing, Na thought to himself. After a time, Naruto shook his head and said, I kind of figured something like that was going on, Behen. The scenes. I'm just so done with it all. I just want to be left alone. Can we just go and get this transplant done so I can rest and relax for a while? I think I've been under way too much stress lately. His frowned at the apparent lack of interest Naruto had shown, but chalked it up to him just being exhausted from the events of yesterday. Hell, it was true that Naruto had been through way too much in such a short period of time. Heck, he died. That'd be enough to stress somebody out for sure. Shaking those thoughts from his head, Hisoen rose to his feet and left with Na, journeying with him to the hospital. If it helps any, Naruto, I am on your side. I'm sorry all of this has happened to you. Thanks, Hokage-sama. I don't know if I could ever forgive you, but I understand. Now, let's hurry. I'm just so tired. I want to get all of this over and done with, Na said. Looking at Naruto's face, Hisoen did notice some small bags under his eyes. He really does look exhausted. Maybe I should just let him rest after this. Shrugging it off, Hisoen led Na inside into the correct room where the transplant would be taking place. Do be careful with him. Of course, Hokage-sama. The surgeon said, Naruto, we're going to put you under for the time being. When you wake up, you'll likely be groggy for a while. You're going to have to wear a cloth around your eyes for a while before you can use your new eyes. Okay. Na looked into the surgeon's eyes and said, sure, some actual sleep sounds wonderful right now. The surgeon chuckled before he nodded to one of his assistants. Putting the IV in the blonde's arm, she soon set everything up before watching as Naruto's eyes began to close. Nodding to the surgeon, she said, give it a few minutes and he should be out like a light. Thank you, surely. All right, everyone. This is a delicate procedure, and I won't accept mistakes from any of you. Hokage-sama, I would like you to step out of the room, please. We'll inform you when the transplant is successful, the surgeon said. Hai frowned momentarily before he nodded his head in acquiescence. Very well, take good care of him, doctor. He said before leaving the room, might as well go back to work. TCH, dealing with all the damn paperwork is such a bother. I wish I could just burn the whole damn pile and be done with it all. Later that afternoon, Na groaned as he slowly came to. At first, he was confused as well as feeling groggy. Letting out a loud yawn, he stretched and tried to open his eyes, only to see black. Frowning, he tried to remember what the hell had happened while he was out. Then it all came rushing back to him. That's right, I've got the bastards sharing now. Can't help but wonder how long I'll have to leave this blindfold on. Oh. Good, you're up. A voice that he recognized from earlier said, "You're awake earlier than I expected." I suppose that's only natural. However, how do you feel? Na frowned for a moment before he said, "My eyes feel really itchy. I know I shouldn't, but I really wish I could scratch at them for a bit." The surgeon chuckled and said, "That's only natural. Give it some time. We're going to release you into the custody of Kusha Usuzuaki. Okay, shall watch over you and help you out. I want you to return to see me in a week from today. I'll remove the blindfold then and we'll see how well you've acclimated to your new eyes." Okay, Na nodded and said, "All right, thanks, Doc. Of course. Do you have any questions before I bring Kusha-san in to see you?" Na frowned and tried to think over anything he might need to know. After a while, he just shrugged and said, "I can't think of anything, but if something starts to feel off, I should probably come back and see you right away." Ha, the surgeon nodded, though Naruto couldn't see him do so. "Yes, if you feel that something is wrong, I want you to come see me right away. I'll do whatever I can to help you with the healing process." "Thanks. I'm ready for Kusha now. Before you go, do I have any clothes somewhere around here? I'm feeling a little breezy." The surgeon chuckled softly and handed Naruto his clothes. Helping him out of bed, the surgeon allowed the blonde to lean against him for the time being until he could in his center of balance again. Once he was sure Naruto was ready, he watched calmly as the teen dressed himself. Once he was sure that everything was fine, he said, "Kusha-san will be in just a moment. Take care, Na," frowning to himself. Na said, "Damn eyes itch so bad. Can't rub at them though. Can't make things worse. They itch too much." Giggling could be heard as Kusha entered the room. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I shouldn't laugh, but you really do make for an interesting sight right now. I know your eyes itch right now, but you'll be okay. I promise. Would you like to go out and get a bite to eat? You've been cooped up in the hospital all day." Na chuckled softly and said, "That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Are any of the others with you?" Kusha nodded and said, "Yes. Neo and Rias have been waiting here for you. The others would be here as well, but they're quite busy today, it would seem. Haku is currently trying to get acclimated into the village still. She's been assigned to Team 7 as Sasuke's replacement. I'm sure she and Sakura are looking forward to when you recover. Especially little Sakura," she teased. Na chuckled softly and said, "Thanks. Of course. Here." Kusha took Naruto's hand in hers and began to lead him out of the room. Once they were in the hallway, she greeted Kenyo and Rias. "Rias, Kenyo, would you like to get some dinner with the two of us?" Rias smiled brightly and said, "I'd love to." Kenyo simply smiled and nodded her head. Seeing this caused Kusha to giggle a bit before she turned and began guiding Naruto along once more. As they walked, the redhead decided to ask her son, "Where would you like to eat? Ramen Ikyaku? Perhaps yakiniku Q? You know, some barbecue does sound rather good right now," Naruto admitted. After a moment, he asked Keniko-chan. "Rias-chan, how does that sound to you?" "Yum," Kenyo said in her usual monotone voice. Hearing this caused Naruto to chuckle a bit, figuring she was down for the idea. Rias giggled a bit and said, "That sounds lovely, Naruto-kun. Do you mind if I, hold your hand while we walk?" Na frowned for a moment as he thought it over. After a time, he held out his hand for Rias to take. When she did, he gave it a gentle squeeze to reassure her that he didn't hate her. Blushing, Rias smiled contentedly to herself and intertwined her fingers with his. Leaning in close, she pressed her lips to his cheek and said, "I really do love you, Naruto-kun, more than you could ever know." Na blushed and said, "I know and thank you. I don't know yet how I feel about you. I've forgiven you, but I don't want to just rush into anything." "Okay, of course. I won't try to rush you or anything. I promise. I'm happy just to be near to you. My wonderful Naruto-kun," Rias said, sounding awfully lover-like. Na chuckled softly but didn't say another word. She really is something special, isn't she? Still, she hid my mother from me and tried to manipulate things behind the scenes. Same as the old bastard. Sighing softly, he soon just lost himself to his thoughts. Kenio watched all of this with a frown on her face, but didn't say anything. In her mind, Rias deserved to spend some quality time with the Destined One. Because that is what he was to them, the Destined One. The one they were always meant to be with no matter what. Don't hurt him again, Rias-sama. I won't hesitate to hurt you if you hurt my Naru again. Outside, Rias and the girls frowned as they spotted the various citizens of Konoha looked at Na. These weren't friendly expressions. No, they looked like predators planning for the next meal. When they began to whisper amongst themselves, the four of them frowned at what they heard. They're going to try something. Just watch, Kasha said. Roos scowled at this and said, until Naruto-kun's ready to remove the blindfold, we need to always travel in groups. We can't let them believe they can hurt our Naruto-kun. Let's go, Kenio said before she began to tug on Naruto's shirt. With the two redheads nodding in agreement, they led Naruto through the village. Though the looks didn't stop. Now that Naruto was essentially blind for the time being, they seemed to believe he was easy pickings. Now, not one of them knew yet that he no longer housed the Kyobi. No, in all their infinite wisdom, they still believed he was the Kyobi no Yoko. A while later, they finally arrived at Yakiniku and stepped inside. Thankfully, the people here were friendly and didn't have any intention of harming Naruto in any way. However, as they peered outside, they saw that a large group of people had followed them and were now simply waiting. Scowling at this, Kusha said, Roos, we need to contact the others. For the time being, we're stuck here until we can get some more help. Think you could get in touch with the others? Roos nodded and said, of course. Give me a moment. While Roos worked on getting in contact with their fellow peerage members, Kusha looked outside again with a nasty scowl on her face. Keniko, are you ready to fight if need be? The white-haired beauty nodded. Yes, as much as I hate the man, should we try to get in contact with the Hokage? He might be able to help. Kusha shook her head and said, I'd rather not bet on that horse if I can help it. We can't trust him, and there's no telling what he'd do if he learned about this. Chances are, he knew this kind of thing would happen and neglected to set up countermeasures against such a thing. Kenio frowned and said, damn. Na scowled as he clenched his fists tight. Before he could say anything, however, the waitress stepped up to them with a smile and asked what they'd like to drink. After taking the drink orders, she asked if they were ready to order, but her answer was a swift, not yet. Nodding her head in understanding, the waitress left them to their own devices once again. I wish I could help in some way, but right now, I'm practically useless to all of you. I don't know what I could possibly do to help in this situation. Na admitted frustratedly. Kusha placed a gentle hand upon his shoulder and said, it's fine, Nakan. Well here. We'll start taking you back home where it's safe. Just leave the fighting to us if it comes down to that. Okay. Na nodded his head somewhat reluctantly. Of course. Sorry for being such a burden right now. Kusha lightly flicked his forehead, eliciting a small ow from her son. You aren't a burden. You're a valued member of our family. We'll always keep you safe. Thanks, Na said. Rias looked at her friends and said, Keba and the others will be here soon. I've informed them of the situation and they're none too pleased. If these people push their luck, there's going to be a lot of dead citizens. I hope the Hokage is ready to deal with that kind of fallout. Kusha nodded and said, good to hear. For now, why don't we figure out what we want to eat? Unless the others will be joining us. Ria smiled and shook her head. They said to go ahead and order for them. Now, do you know what you'd like, Naruto-kun? Na let a small smile form on his face as he gave his response. However, inside he was quite upset by this whole situation. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that old bastard planned for this to happen. I may be blind for the time being, but that doesn't mean I can't still fight. This might even be good training to hone my other senses. I've neglected that for a while, so it might be worth a shot. Later, after the rest of Ria's peerage had arrived and joined them in their feast, the group paid for their meal and proceeded to leave the restaurant. There was a much larger group of people now, each of them just waiting for the opportunity to pounce and kill their prey. Kusha frowned deeply as she hurriedly guided Naruto along. The Peerage members were in a circle around the two of them, making sure to keep close just to ensure no stray attacks of any kind could reach him. However, their luck wasn't meant to last. Soon enough, they became surrounded on all sides, and they were left huddling close together, still keeping NA tucked away from harm. Be good, little boys and girls, and step aside. Now's the perfect chance for us to get rid of this blight on our village's great history. After all, the idiot's gone and crippled himself. There's never been a better time than this to deal with him. The apparent leader of the group exclaimed somewhat maniacally. Before anyone could say or do anything more, they all heard the sound of barking dogs. This was shortly followed by a voice saying, "Yeah, what do we have here? Looks like we've got a lot of little ones misbehaving. Do let my friends through, would you please?" Looking up towards the voice, they were a bit surprised to see the legendary Kakashi Hatake sitting atop a nearby roof. A serious glint in his eye. In a matter of seconds, the mob was surrounded by Kakashi's dog summons. However, this wasn't their only problem. Looking around, they could see a large number of people, each of them shinobi of varying strengths. What? Kakashi simply smiled at the mob and said, "You see, when I saw a mob forming, I decided to investigate. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that you were all after little Naruto-kun over there. Still, to think you'd be willing to attack a shinobi of Konoha. For shame, people, for shame." Smirking behind his mask, he said, "So, I decided to recruit a small army of my own. If you insist on attacking a shinobi when you're mere civilians, we're going to have quite the problem on our hands. It would be well within our right to fight back. And if some of you were to die, well, so be it. So, here's what's going to happen." Making sure he had their attention, Kakashi clapped his hands together once and said with a large grin behind his mask, "You're all going to go home and think about why. Our pathetic lives. I want you to keep something important in mind as you contemplate the meaning of your worthless lives. Naruto Uzumaki is not the Kyuubi. Never has been, never will be. Besides that, he's never harmed any of you. Naruto is a well-behaved young man that has only ever wanted to be a productive member of our fair society. I think that's fair, don't you?" When the leader of the mob looked about ready to speak up, Kakashi disappeared from sight. Blinking a few times, he opened his mouth to speak before he suddenly froze. A kunai was pressing against his throat just enough to draw blood. Remaining perfectly still, the man glanced to his left, staring into the Jonin's lone eye. "I didn't give you permission to speak, little man. I want you all to make me a promise. Promise me that you'll leave Naruto and his loved ones alone from now on, or we can start killing all of you. Believe me, I have absolutely no problem killing each and every last one of you. It might be cathartic in a way." Shrugging his shoulders, Kakashi smiled again and said, "Still, I'd rather not have to go through the hassle of explaining everything to the Hokage. Too much work. So, can we all call it a day and get a move on? Or should my friends and I start killing you? I'm cool either way." The various members of the mob looked around at all the shinobi surrounding them. There were even some summoned animals in the mix which did not help steel their nerves. Slowly they turned into a quivering mess and chose to run away screaming. Those that remained behind were either rooted in place by fear or they were too stupid to realize they were utterly. Then of course there was the leader who still had a kunai pressing against his neck. Seeing that a good chunk of villagers chose to remain despite the rather clear warning to run away, Kakashi simply shrugged again and said, "Well, looks like you all get a free ticket to hell. Enjoy," the cycloptic Jonin said before he slit the man's throat. It didn't take long for the others to decimate the remainder of the mob. Seeing that they were done, Kakashi's eyes smiled again and walked up to Rias in her peerage. "I'm glad to see you're all okay. Everything's going to be just fine now. I assure you." Rias breathed a sigh of relief and shook Kakashi's hand. "Thank you, Kakashi-san. If you hadn't come when you did." The silver-haired man simply waved it off before stepping past her. Reaching up, he gently patted Naruto atop the head and said, "I expect to see you bright and early tomorrow morning, Naruto-kun. You may be unable to see for the time being, but that's no reason to slack off. I'm going to help build up your other senses so you never have to feel weak like this again. Besides, I figured you wouldn't want to just sit around the house all day doing nothing. Isn't that right? Na chuckled softly and said, "Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. I'm looking forward to it." "Good. Now, let's get you home. Hopefully, they get the message now that you're off limits. Should they ever attempt something like this again?" "Well," Kakashi said, leaving the sentence hanging at that. Na chuckled again and said, "Yeah, thanks again. No problem, Naran. We're going to have such a fun week. By the time you can use your eyes again, you're going to just love me." "I'm sure of it," Kakashi said, a wicked grin hidden behind his mask. Na felt a cold shiver shoot down his spine, but he pushed the nervous feeling aside and said, "Good. I don't want you holding back just because I can't see anything." "No worries there," Kakashi said before ruffling his student's hair. As they journeyed back towards the Uzumaki compound where Naruto and his mother now lived, Rias couldn't help but clutch at her chest where her heart was located. "I thought we were in trouble for a while there. Thank you so much, Kakashi. We really owe you." Rias agreed with what Kakashi decided, though, and she'd be right there to help him train Naruto and Haku. After all, they still needed to get the hang of casting magic and getting the hang of teleporting tea. Oh, and from separate locations. So, while Kakashi would train them in the arts of the shinobi, she trained them in all things magical and filled their heads with as much knowledge as she possibly could. "I promise you'll be more than ready for the upcoming Chunin exams. My darling Naruto-kun, you'll become a Chunin for sure once they see what all you can do." Little did they know that the Chunin exams were going to be an absolute hell for each of them in one way or another. In the back of her mind, Rias couldn't help but worry that something was going to go horribly wrong during the exams, though she'd push that thought aside for the time being. No sense in worrying about what may come. Instead, she let her mind wander to the familiars her new pieces might get. Frowning after a moment, she thought, "I guess we'll have to put that off for the time being. I forgot Naruto was getting the eye transplant today. Damn it." With a shrug of her shoulders, she figured there wouldn't be any point in rushing. They had all the time in the world after all. "Ow," Na said as he walked into yet another solid object. This one actually felt like a tree. Oddly enough, it was a welcome change from the usual training dummy or obstacle he kept walking into. It was the following day after the villagers were successfully cowed by Kakashi and his allies. As promised, Kakashi had come to collect Naruto early in the morning, not even 4 o'clock a.m. yet. It turned out that he had collected both Haku and Sakura as well, considering Haku had been added to their team in place of Sasaki. Honestly, they felt it was a welcome change, especially considering the fact that Sasaki was always such an insufferable at the best of times. Besides, who would want to work with someone that would so willingly sacrifice and or kill their allies? They certainly didn't. Oddly enough, for Na and his loved ones, at least Kakashi had expressed his concerns about the Hokage and his odd behavior. The silver-haired Jonin warned Naruto to be careful of the Hokage and vowed to do whatever he could to protect the teenager from harm, even at the Hokage hands. Something about the third Hokage was rubbing him the wrong way. And Kakashi always trusted his instincts. Shaking those thoughts off, Naruto decided he would focus on the here and now. Despite the fact that he was currently blind, the blonde knew that he had enough situational awareness to avoid the worst obstacles, even if he couldn't see them. So why then was he having so much trouble? Kakashi, in all his infinite wisdom and sadistic humor, had inserted earplugs into his students' ears, cutting off his hearing as well. He apparently felt that instead of working on his hearing, they'd work on his remaining senses first. Though Na got the feeling that Kakashi was finding the whole situation a tad too hilarious. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Na focused on his remaining senses. "Come on, if you can't see her here, then feel for something else. Maybe if I use my mana, I can work through this somehow. Worth a shot, I suppose." Shrugging, Na decided to just go with his new idea and see if he could make it work somehow. Feeling for his mana, Na soon began to release small pulses of mana from his body, almost as if he was trying to mimic a bar. T's skill of echolocation. When he began to feel the pulses bouncing back towards him, he began to get a picture for the surrounding landscape. After a time, he felt like he had a good sense of where everything was, including just how far off the obstacle course he had wandered. So, turning around, he walked back over to the obstacles and released some more small pulses, waiting a moment to ensure he got a good picture of what to expect. When the spiky-haired blonde started making his way carefully through the obstacle course, Ria smirked to herself and said, "That's it, N.A. Rutkan. Very good job." Kakashi chuckled and said, "I see he's using some of that mana you told me about. It feels different from chakra, but at the same time," the crimson-haired devil nodded and said, "they are fundamentally similar. Yes, Narutkan has far more mana in him than normal people do. It's just as vast as his chakra pool. Powerful, but without form, without purpose. Until he can master control over his chakra and his mana, he'll expend far more than what is needed for the task at hand. Just trying to make use of this sonar-like ability he's employing, he's expending far too much mana. We're just lucky he hasn't managed to accidentally topple any trees or destroy the obstacle course with all the mana he's expending. Control is something we're going to need to work on while we have the time." Kakashi nodded in understanding. "Of course, right now, my goal is to get him used to using his other senses rather than trying to rely on sight to get him places. I would really rather he not get into situations like the one yesterday ever again. However, I would like to start him on control exercises once he has passed this particular test. Do you think you could get him to use that blast of mana you told me about before?" Roos frowned in thought for a time before saying, "Maybe. I'm not sure if he's even consciously aware of how he fired a concentrated blast of mana like that. We'll just have to see if we can get him to use it again." Yes, Rias had confided in Kakashi all about what she and Naruto were all about, the wonders of mana and magic, the various races and species, etc. Kakashi had proven himself to be a true ally, and she knew that he could be trusted with their secrets. So far, he had not let her down, and she knew that he would not betray their trust in him, which she was more than thankful for. When Na got knocked flat by a swinging arm obstacle, Rias winced in sympathy for him and said, "Ouch, poor Narutkan." Kakashi chuckled softly and said, "His sonar ability seems to be helping, but he still has a ways to go if he wants to perfect such a useful ability." Poor Na indeed. As Narut pushed himself back up onto his feet, he shook his head free of the cobwebs before taking a deep, calming breath. "Okay, so that didn't work. Stationary objects are obviously no problem, but moving ones will still kick my definitely going to need to work on that. So, let's try this again. You can do this, Na. If you don't master this exercise, you're never going to be able to defend yourself against those bigots." Sadly, try as he might, Narut continued to have trouble with the moving obstacles. Oh, he had perseverance and stubbornness on his side, but trying to work your way blindly through an obstacle course the way he was just wasn't working for him. Eventually, after narrowly making it about 90% of the way through the course, Narut took a nasty blow to the gut and was sent crashing to the ground below. Thanking the rook inside of him for the boosted defense, damage, resistance, Narut simply rolled over onto his back and muttered, "Damn it," to himself a few times. When he felt someone's fingers tapping him on his left side, he reached up and removed the earplugs. "Hello," Rias smiled down at him, even though he couldn't see it. "You did very well, Naruto. I was very impressed. I'm sorry you couldn't make it all the way to the end, but you really did do very, very well." Before Naruto could say anything in response, Kakashi said, "You made it pretty far for this being your first time through something like this. That trick you used was clever, but you'll need to refine it until it's battle ready, so to speak. Right now, you're still a sitting duck out there, just waiting for someone to get the better of you. But we'll continue to work on that. For right now." Helping Naruto to his feet, Kakashi placed his hands on the blonde's shoulder and turned him towards some trees. "I want you to point straight ahead and try to do what you did in the Land of Waves. I heard you used some kind of concentrated blast of pure mana to hurt Sasuke. I want you to try and do it again. Just do whatever comes naturally to you, and remember to point straight ahead while you do this." Na was puzzled by Kakashi's insistence to fire one of his magic bullets in that specific direction, but he decided against questioning it. Instead, he pointed his finger straight ahead and began to focus on trying to get a grasp on his mana. At first, there were simple sparks shooting from his fingertip, but after getting the hang of it, he formed a large ball at the end of his finger. Grinning slightly, he released it straight ahead in one powerful, concentrated burst. "Phew, did it," Na said excitedly. Rias and Kakashi didn't exactly share Naruto's sense of excitement. They just continued to stare as a large, very large trench was cut through the ground and still going. When it eventually hit the third's face on the Hokage monument, they both sweat dropped. Once the mana dissipated finally, the duo stared blankly at what they were seeing. The third Hokage's face was just gone. There was no trace of it left. On top of that, pieces of what was once the third's nose rained down on the village below. Sure hope nobody was crushed by those, Kakashi thought as another sweat drop formed. Rias, meanwhile, found herself giggling at the sheer panic they could all hear coming from the village. Naruto, you supercharged your attack and left a trail of destruction in your wake. You're lucky your attack was angled upwards, otherwise a lot of people could have just been killed. You even did a little remodeling of the Hokage monument. They're probably going to try and repair that later, but it's bound to take years before they've fixed that damage. Wait, I did what? Just what the hell was I supposed to be aiming at? Na questioned in a panic. I thought I was just firing a small bullet or something. Not whatever the hell I just did. Kakashi chuckled and said, I was honestly hoping you would hit our guest and force them out of hiding. I wasn't expecting you to completely remodel the Hokage monument. Though without the third's face up there, it does look better. Off in the distance, they could hear the Hokage shouting about the damage that had been done to his face and who was responsible for such a thing. They didn't focus on that, though. No, somebody else had their full attention now. You could have killed me. Just what the hell were you thinking? Aiming that at me? Before Naruto could say anything in reply, Rias placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered in his ear, It's your godfather, Jiraiya. F the Sonnen, be careful not to say too much. Kakashi stepped in front of his student and stared coldly into Jiraiya's eyes. I do not take kindly to people trying to spy on me, let alone those I cherish. We expected privacy while here. Why then did you feel it important to use your technique to spy on us? Is there some reason for you to be here, Jiraiya? Jiraiya scowled at Kakashi for a time before turning his gaze on Naruto. I heard some rumors and received some interesting reports from my sources. I needed to investigate. I didn't expect to find my godson blind and shooting magic bullets willy-nilly. Besides, this is deviating from the plan. Na frowned distastefully and asked, What plan? What else do you and that old bastard want from me? Jiraiya turned his scowl on Naruto and said, Don't call him that. As for the plan, it's none of your business. But if you must know, you were supposed to keep the Kyuubi and harness its power. I was going to train you in the proper usage of that beast's power. More than that, I'm afraid you don't need to know, but I've heard that you supposedly died on your last mission and lost the Kyuubi. Do you have any idea what you've done? Rias reached down and took one of Naruto's hands into hers. If you want to blame anyone for what happened, then direct your blame on Sasuke Uchiha or even the villagers that were responsible for Naruto's neglect and Sasuke's inflated ego. Hell, blame the Hokage if you want. Besides, where do you get off saying the things you are? Does all of this anger have to do with that screwed up prophecy you were told? Naruto frowned in thought for a time before saying, A prophecy. Those are to be taken with a grain of salt. Do you realize how many prophecies have turned out to be nothing more than hogwash? After a moment, it clicked in his head, and he looked in Jiraiya's general direction. This prophecy has something to do with you, something that would bring you glory. It has to be something big, something you could brag about. And considering you apparently wanted to use me to further such goals, Rias and Kakashi's eyes widened before they narrowed the gaze at Jiraiya. So that's why you were so obsessed with molding the perfect apprentice to suit your needs. Let me guess, world peace. It has to be something really big like that. Something that would practically guarantee you would have women practically throwing themselves at you. But it's not a direct result of your actions, is it? Somebody else is involved. And once they're successful, you could ride on their coattails and bask in the glory. Kakashi surmised. Before Jiraiya could say anything in response, Naruto spoke up again. You can't just manipulate a prophecy to suit your needs and desires. If they're meant to happen, then they'll happen. Let me guess. You tried this same tactic with my father. Was he aware of this prophecy of yours? Was he willing to go along with your plan? Or did he shoot you down? Because I have no interest in participating in your plan, Jiraiya. I won't let you manipulate me like that old bastard has been all my life. The Toad Sage clenched his fists angrily, glaring heatedly at the three of them. Taking a few deep breaths, he looked straight at Na and said, "You don't know anything, Uzumaki." "Yes, I was told a prophecy, and yes, I wanted to see it come to fruition, but that doesn't give any of you the right tea. Oh, mock me and badmouth sensei. So, what if you've suffered a little?" Before Jiraiya could say anything more, Naruto interrupted him once again. "Suffered a little? Let me guess. Part of your plan was to ensure I was too stupid to realize what kind of pompous jackass you are, right? I've been beaten, scorned, bullied, and even killed by the people of this village. You and the third wanted me to be so desperate for any kind of positive reaction that I'd gladly jump at the chance to learn everything I could from you. I'm right, aren't I? This prophecy, it involves you training the person who will bring peace, doesn't it? Tell me something, Jiraiya. How many students have you trained so far that you told would be the child of prophecy? I was just the next one on your list to try and manipulate, wasn't I? Just how many times have you tried this same old ploy of yours? I reiterate, you don't know anything," Jiraiya bellowed angrily. "If you must know, Sensei and I came up with this plan together. He listened to me when I told him about the prophecy. He believes in me and knows I have what it takes to be really great. But you're right, Sensei upped the plan. He made deals with these devils and the plan was shot to hell." But Kakashi and Roos easily saw the maniacal gleam in Jiraiya's eyes. "At this point, the plan can still be salvaged. So what if you don't house the Kyuubi anymore? You have access to powers nobody else does. Massive chakra and mana reserves. One of those sacred gear things. You can still become powerful enough to save this wretched world. And I'll teach you everything you could ever need to know. Sensei may have made a mistake, but I won't. So, what do you say, Uzumaki? Ready to learn under the best there is?" Roos held Naruto protectively against her and looked into Jiraiya's eyes as calmly as she could. "Jiraiya, you need to leave. You're not in your right mind. Maybe once you've calmed down, you can try this again. You're scaring us." Out of the corner of his eyes, Kakashi saw Rias and Naruto taking cautious steps backwards. "They're getting ready to run. I don't blame them," he thought to himself silently. Returning his gaze to Jiraiya, he said, "She's right, Jiraiya. You're not well. Go see Inoki and talk to him. I'm sure he can help you. Maybe once you're better, you can talk to Na then." "Okay." The large sage looked between them for a moment before turning his gaze back onto Na. Seeing the frightened look on his face, Jiraiya smirked a bit, but still nodded his head to signify he understood. "I'll leave for now at least. I'll be back though. I'm not giving up on you, Naruto Uzumaki. I'm not giving up on the prophecy." And with that, he turned and walked off, a sinister grin on his face. If that attack of his is anything to go on, then Uzumaki is going to be a true force to be reckoned with. Once he has the proper training under his belt. I may not know jack about mana, but his chakra. Oh, that I can work with. So, little devil, teach him all the tricks that you know. Once he's ready, I'll mold him into the perfect tool. I won't give up. As soon as Jiraiya was out of sight and out of their hair, the three of them breathed a simultaneous sigh of relief. Looking at her Rook, Rias asked, "Are you all right, Naruto-kun? You looked frightened for a while there." Kakashi chuckled dryly and said, "He wasn't the only one. I think we all were terrified for a moment there." Na nodded once and said, "That was definitely scary. Who knew he was so deranged? Seems to me that he's desperate for positive attention. Like he wants to earn Hirozen's approval no matter what it takes." But Kakashi nodded in response. "There's definitely more to it than just that. I think you were right when you said he just wants all the glory. He's meant to train the child of prophecy or something along those lines. The problem is who exactly told him this prophecy. Prophecies are intentionally kept vague for a reason. You're really not supposed to put so much stock into a prophecy as they aren't set in stone. Things can change and prophecies have a funny way of changing as well. It's like the butterfly effect that you hear about when discussing time travel. Even the slightest of alterations can cause a serious ripple in the timeline, causing any number of things to happen. Only in this case, the fact that you died was never meant to factor into the prophecy Jiraiya was told about. The problem we're faced with now is the fact that he doesn't seem to understand that concept. He's obviously been obsessing over this prophecy for a long time now, and the third Hokage has only exacerbated the problem. He's been adding more fuel to the fire, and it's been left on for far too long. In other words, not good. Very not good. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said. Jiraiya was the class clown that always felt inferior to someone like I felt compared to Sasaki. Am I right? Roos nodded and said, you're correct. And like you, he was placed on a team with that person. Orochimaru of the Sunning. And to make things worse, Hisan favored Orochimaru over Jiraiya. He was always proudest of that wretched snake. He felt such a powerful bond with that scum that he even let Orochimaru escape instead of killing him when he had the chance. Actually, blinking a couple of times, Rias ended up face palming herself and said, Kusha probably knows way more about the situation than I do. She's been trying to gather information on all the goings on in the world. I'm sure that she's probably got a ton of information on Orochimaru and his dealings by now. I can guarantee right now that Orochimaru will make a move sometime in the near future. He's obsessed with a few goals in particular: immortality, knowledge, and power. And trust me, he is not the kind of person you want to give any of those things. In other words, the third Hokage up big time, and now it's up to other people to clean up another of his messes. Peachy, Na said, bringing his hand to his face. As if we didn't have enough to deal with already. Between the three of them, seems like the least up of the bunch. Not to say she doesn't have her own set of problems, considering what I've been told about her. Still, might be a good idea to look into getting her back here to Konoha as soon as possible. We could use an ally like her. Roos frowned slightly and shook her head. You're right, but it won't be that easy. Let's do what we can together before we try anything with Sun Unit. Sounds like a plan to me. Kakashi said. Now before Kakashi could say anything more, they heard the third Hokage coming closer. If his angry ranting was anything to go on. Did you do this? Nah. Why would you cause such blatant destruction of the monument? What were you even thinking? Sorry, Hokage-sama. We were trying to help Na familiarize himself with using his other senses to get around. I decided to try and test his capabilities with his new abilities by having him aim at that target over there. Something distracted us and Naruto lost control of his powers for a moment. It was a complete accident, I assure you. But if you need to punish someone, let it be me. I'm the one who came up with the idea to test his powers when he can't see anything at the moment. Kakashi said, trying to ease the Hoage's boiling temper. Naruto chuckled nervously and rubbed the back of his head. My bad, Hokage-sama. I was told to try something small, but I kind of overcharged my technique. I had no idea I could do something like that. I'll try some control exercises and try to get it all under control. I'm really sorry. Hisan scowled for a time before releasing an exhausted sigh. That blasted thing is going to take forever to fix, but I suppose you aren't to blame for a training accident. Just promise me that you'll focus on controlling your abilities before you attempt to do something like is again. Sure thing, Hokage-sama. Honest mistake. I swear once I can use my eyes again, I should have a much easier time. Right now, I'm pretty much running blind. Na said, so you are, Hisan said, sounding genuinely exhausted. It's fine. I'll get some people to work on it immediately. You three should take a break and get something to eat. It's almost lunchtime and you'll want food in your bellies if you want to resume training. And without waiting for a reply, the Hokage turned and walked away. Left alone, Rias let out a breath before saying, hopefully, that's the last interruption for a while. He is right, though. We should go get something to eat. Would you like to come with us, Kakashi? Kakashi's initial response was to say, sure. But then he got an amusing idea in his head. Shaking his head, he said, no, I'd just be a third wheel. Go on and enjoy your date. Have fun, kiddos. And with that, he walked away with a smile on his face. Roos blushed slightly before looking at Na. He was just teasing. You don't have to. Na sighed and said, it's fine. I know how you feel about me, Rias-chan. I'm still upset with you for what you did, but I also know that I care for you a lot. I don't want to stay mad at you forever. I want to get over it and be happy with each other again. So, if you want to treat this as a date, then I'll play along. But if I'm uncomfortable with something you're doing or saying, I reserve the right to tell you so. So, please try to take it easy, okay? Let's start slow. The crimson-haired devil smiled at him and took one of his hands in hers. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I know I let you down. I know I hurt you and I'm truly sorry for doing it, but thank you for being such a wonderful person. I know I should have said it sooner, but I really do love you. I can't imagine my life anymore without you in it. I'm just so glad to have met you. I'm happy just being near you. Ina sighed softly again and said, "It's okay, Rias-chan. I understand. I really do. I care about you. I always have and I know that I always will. I don't like being mad at you. I do feel bad for treating you and the others the way I did when I first learned Kusha was alive and you kept her from me. I promised you that nothing would change between us and ruin our relationship. And I broke my promise. So, I'm sorry. I should have waited to hear the truth, the full truth. But I didn't. I flew off the handle and I ran from my problems instead of facing them as I should have. I should have believed in you and kept my word to you. I think that's part of what has me so frustrated. I couldn't keep my promise to you and it hurts. I'm mad at myself for not trusting you, for turning on you and betraying you like I did. I'm truly sorry." Roos frowned sadly at him and began to struggle to find the words she needed to say to her beloved Rook. After a moment of silence passed between them, she finally came to a decision. Placing her hands on his shoulders, she turned him to face her. Then, without a word, she pressed her lips to his, giving him her first kiss. Na was stunned into silence as his king kissed him. At first, he wanted to back away and say something in response, but he quickly squashed that part of him down. Instead, he wrapped his arms around Roos and began to respond in kind to her affections. When they parted, he smiled at her and said, "Thank you, Rias-chan." The busty crimson-haired lady giggled cutely and asked, "Thank me for what? I'm the one that hurt you. I should be the one thanking you for giving me another chance." Na chuckled softly and said, "Let's just agree that we both needed to thank each other and forgive each other at the same time. If you're still willing to be with me after I hurt you, and if I'm still willing to be with you after you hurt me, then I say we're perfect together. What do you think?" Roos giggled and said, "That sounds fine to me, Naruto-kun. Now come along. Let's go get something to eat. Then why don't we return to my abode and cuddle for a time? I don't want our time together to come to an end too shortly after all." Smiling at Rias, he wrapped her in a hug and said, "I love you, too, Rias-chan. Don't ever doubt that." Feeling tears welling up in her eyes, the beauty quickly wiped them away before giving her beloved one more kiss. Once they were done pouring their hearts out to one another, they linked hands again before making their way towards the village proper once again. "Nobody will ever come between us again. You have my word on that, Naruto-kun." Later that night, a Zuzuaki household, "So, you're all in my house? Why exactly?" Kasha questioned her fellow Peerage members. Looking around at the various members of Rias Peerage, she honestly wasn't sure how to feel about some of them anymore. Sure, some of them were okay in her book, but that didn't change the fact that they helped their master or king as Roos was called, in hurting her precious baby boy. Hell, Kusha was still upset that they had dared to play on her little boy's desire to keep a promise just to get out of some arranged marriage with some prick. Taking a deep breath to regain her mental faculties and to quell the burning rage she felt inside herself, Kusha looked at her son and asked, "Are you sure you're comfortable having all of them here right now, Naruto-kun?" Na offered his mother a smile and said, "It's fine. Or Reina and the others here, too." "We're here, Naruto-kun," Reina said. "I wish I could be closer to you, though." Na chuckled softly and said, "Sorry, Reichin. Maybe next time." Reaching up his hand, he began to gently pet Kenyo's hair. She had made sure to sit on his lap and nestle herself back against him the very moment he sat down. Meanwhile, on his left sat Asia, and on his right, holding his hand, was Akano. "Sorry about this, Kusha, but we were hoping to hear what you've learned about Orochimaru of the Sannin. What can we expect from him? Will he be making any moves anytime soon?" Rias questioned her bishop, chancing another glance at her son. Kusha frowned slightly before turning her gaze back onto Rias. "From what I've seen, Orochimaru is starting to make movements throughout the elemental nations. He was a member of the Akatsuki for a time, but after making an attempt on Itachi's life or whatever it was he was attempting to do, the snake was forced to go into hiding." Na frowned in confusion for a time before asking why make an attempt on Itachi's life like that. Though that doesn't make sense if his goal is for immortality, and when the answer dropped on his head like a ton of bricks, he said, the Sharingan. Orochimaru wants the blasted Sharingan. And because he couldn't get Itachi, Kusha nodded along and said, Sasuke was his next target. However, Sasuke no longer possesses the Sharing. You have what Orochimaru wants. Na stopped petting Kenyo for a moment as a look of horror came to his face. Quickly shaking it off, he resumed petting his girlfriend's hair and said, well, that's just peachy. It's likely that he already knows what's happened and has worked his plans around a bit to account for the sudden change. But it would make sense for him to go after Sasuke as well. Sasuke has the ability to pass down the Uchiha bloodline, whereas I'm just a temporary Sharingan wielder. I won't live for eyes widening in realization. He said, oh shit. Kusha nodded and said, Orochimaru wants to live forever. I don't know if he's been made aware of the various factions and if he knows about the long lives of we devils or the other mythological creatures or not. So because you were seemingly revived from the dead by some unknown means, he might feel that you hold the true secret to immortality within you. Orochimaru has been cheating death by use of his cursed seals and jumping from one body to the next every 3 years. He likes to take the best genes and the best people to serve as his host bodies. It's not a perfect solution, but it works for him. I think he originally intended to take Itachi's body as his own. But when that backfired on him, he decided that Sasuke would be his next target. After all, Sasuke is younger and most importantly weaker than Itachi. It would be easier to take over Sasuke's body rather than try for Itachi again. Naruto and Orochimaru will target you to get what he wants. But at the same time, I'm almost certain that he'll try to extract Sasuke from the village as well. If he can force Sasuke to breed him some new, willing hosts, each with their own glorious pair of sharing eyes, he'd be a happy man. Again, not a perfect solution, but it would serve Orochimaru's needs well enough. Kusha said he plans to strike during the upcoming Chunin exams that are being held here in Kanahagakure. Rias frowned and said, that's not good. It's almost certain he'll target Naruto in the Forest of Death if they're holding the second stage there again. They almost certainly will too. And we already know Hirozen won't listen if we try to advise him otherwise. No, we'll have to enact some kind of countermeasures to deal with Orochimaru. Should he go after Naruto and his teammates? It would be terrible if he inflicted one of those cursed seals of his on Naruto. Naruto let out a frustrated sigh and said, great, just great. Taking a moment to just breathe. While continuing to make his shorter girlfriend happy with the head petting, Naruto soon said, at the same time, Hisan is likely making plans of his own that revolve around the Chunin exams as well. I'm 99.99% sure that the Hokage has been in contact with Riza Phoenix. After what Reina-chan told me about the rating games between devils, I'm certain that Riza will come to you and challenge you to a rating game to decide your fate. Looking in Ria's direction, he continued, knowing the professor as well as I do. Hell have instructed Riza to hold the rating game at the same time as the final matches of the Chunin exams. Hai will be trying to force Haku-chan and me into participating in those matches, so we won't be there to help you against Riza in the rating game. I think he already tried to plant the seeds of distrust in me yesterday morning before he took me to get the transplant done. He tried to spin things in a way that would paint you in a bad light. Roos-chan, he tried to convince me that you had twisted his arm and was simply trying to manipulate me all this time. It was all a bunch of, but it was obvious what he was after. He wanted to ensure that at least I wouldn't be there to help you in your fight with Riza. He wouldn't have done that if he wasn't certain that Riza was coming to collect you. That tells me that he and Riza are working together to ensure they both get what they want. Na explained. Rias and the others scowled at this piece of news. Damn it, that's a problem we really don't need. But looking at Koza at this point, she asked, there's more you aren't telling us about Orochimaru and his dealings. What has he been up to exactly? Kusha frowned and said, well, not like we needed more oil for the fire, but Orochimaru has been in contact with Konoha's ally, Sonaja. I'm not sure if you were aware, but Hirozen and Danzo were conspiring together to weaken Suna. They convinced the Wind Daimyo to start delivering the best missions to Konoha instead of providing the funding needed to keep Suna afloat. Orochimaru is playing on that problem and using it to his advantage. So, Orochimaru's new village of Odoga and Sonagira have allied together and will be staging an invasion of Konoha during the day of the final matches of the Chunin exams. Reina frowned at this and said, "That's not good. Orochimaru is a snake in pretty much every sense of the word. There's no way to trust someone like that. Chances are that as soon as he has what he wants, Orochimaru will kill Rosa, the fourth Kage. In fact, it might have already happened. There might be no way for us to stop this invasion from happening. Kasha, what's their trump card?" Looking into the Fallen's eyes, the redhead said Gar is their trump card. He's Ross's youngest child and he houses the Equip. However, thanks to some shoddy Fujitsu work, Gar is mentally unstable and doesn't listen to reason. He thinks that the only way to prove his existence is to kill everyone else. He'll obey and behave for a time, but if he's allowed to unleash that beast on Konoha, what are the odds that Jera has learned of Orochimaru's plan? Na asked. Kusha frowned slightly and shook her head. Not high. Jiraiya may be this village's spy master, but he doesn't have access to the same kinds of sources I do. Besides, he'd much rather sat his vices than do his job properly. I think the most he'll be able to tell Hirozen is that Orochimaru is on the move and will be striking Konoha during the Hunan exams. I don't know if Jiraiya knows more than that or not. Roos frowned as well as she brought a hand to her chin. Tracing her fingers along her jawline, she thought over all the information that had been presented thus far. So, we can't rely on Jiraiya or Hissen to put effective countermeasures into place unless something drastic happens earlier in the exams. At best, they know Orochimaru is on the move and that's it. They probably won't even have access to the full details on the invasion plan and won't have any way to counter Orochimaru until it's too late. At best, Jiraiya would be on the lookout for some giant snakes with no clue about the real threat. Orochimaru will likely be trying to kill the third Hokage during that time as well. Garo would be left unchecked, free to go on a rampage throughout the village. Unless we do something and set up some countermeasures of our own. Since Haku-chan and I will be helping you against Riser Phoenix, couldn't we recruit Sona-chan and her Purage? Na questioned. They're powerful and smart enough to be able to deal with somebody like Gar. Heck, if they work together like I know they can and will, Gar probably wouldn't stand a chance. Before Rias could say anything in response, Kush's eyes widened and she exclaimed, "That's brilliant. Gar is known for his control over sand. The Ikibi is a giant tanuki-like monster made of sand. Sona wields powerful water magic." Roos' eyes widened and she said, "The Ikib's greatest advantage can also be turned into its greatest weakness, but its massive size would pose a problem even for Sona. At best, she might be able to limit its mobility, but she couldn't stop a tailed beast ball aimed at Konoha if it came down to that. Oh, if only Minato was still alive, we could have made use of his flying thunder god technique. Then we'll just have to help her," Kawana said, getting everyone's attention. When they all looked her way, the buxom Bluet looked at them all seriously and said, "If you lot can convince the Katria to cooperate with us when it's time to fight that thing, then the three of us can help her defeat Thing. Her Purage will be needed to set up a barrier to contain the fighting, leaving Sona and her queen to fight that thing on their own. More than likely, the two of them cannot handle the Ikib on their own. So, let us help her." Rias frowned sadly at them and said, "You'll be putting yourselves in a great amount of danger if you try to fight that beast. Are you sure the three of you can handle it?" Mittel placed a hand to her chest and said, "Don't you worry about us. With the five of us fighting that thing together, we can put a stop to it before it can hurt anyone. Heck, we'll put the fear of God into that thing. It'll never want to cause chaos of any kind ever again." Before anyone could say anything else, Narut spoke up, catching everyone's attention. "Let them try. I believe in them. Like they said, if they work together, it'll all work out." But looking in his mother's direction, Narut asked with his seal as unstable as it is there something in particular we should be concerned about? Kusha nodded and said, "We can't let him fall asleep. He hasn't permitted himself to sleep much in his life. When he sleeps, the Ikibi can get free to run amok while Gar rests. So, if it's at all possible, you five will need to defeat him, but not knock him unconscious. If he uses that Figning sleep technique, your best bet is to wake him up as soon as possible. So, just make sure Gar is too beaten and broken to get up and fight anymore." I'll leave a shadow clone with you that will make some modifications to his seal, but it's up to you 5 to break him down. Do you understand? That could be tricky, but we can pull it off. Citri will be our trump card against Gar and the Ikibi, just as Gar was meant to serve as Orochimaru's trump C. Ard against Konoha. You lot just need to focus on freeing Rias from her arranged marriage with that turkey. Reina said before staring straight into Ria's eyes. Make damn sure you all win that fight. I don't want to have to go break up a wedding if I don't have to. Kusha smirked and said, oh, don't worry about that. Riza won't know what hit him once we're through with him. Reina smirked back and said, good. I'm looking forward to hearing the good news. And Narok, seeing she had his attention, she said, make sure you give Riza and Ria's dad a good smack. For me, would you, sweetie? Na chuckled softly and said, oh, I plan on it. Riza is going to learn real fast why you don't with Rias Chan's porridge. As for her dad, I've got a few choice words I'd like to say to him, too. Don't worry, they'll both get the message loud and clear. Good, Reina said. Roos couldn't help the smile that crept its way up onto her face. I have such a wonderful family and a great circle of friends. Riza, Dad, I will get out of this unwelcome marriage contract with their help. For once, I can see the light of hope at the end of that tunnel and not some black void of nothingness that I thought awaited me. And if I have my way, I'll be marrying Naruto instead. Ooh. I can't wait. So guys, what do you think about this Naruto story? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you want more Naruto What If stories, make sure to subscribe to Universe of Naruto. Thanks for watching.